Hello and welcome back to Crafting Cartoons, your one-stop shop to learn everything you need to know to create your own animated series or pilot. So today we got a very special visitor. We've got Lauren Orty. Lauren, I'd like for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Lauren Orty, and I am a storyboard supervisor at Blue Zoo Animation in the UK. I guess I didn't know if I had to mention that, but yeah.
It is one of the biggest animation studios in the UK, so little round of applause there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm currently working. I'm a storyboard supervisor on a CBeebies show, upcoming season 1, brand new. I've previously worked on other CBeebies, Nickelodeon, Cartoonito, lots of kids' TV is my expertise. And yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Mark.
Lovely to have you. So, first question I've got is, how did you get into storyboarding?
So it's a weird one because it's I've always wanted to work in animation, like since I was a kid. It was always, whether it was like the films I watched or the TV I watched, it was always like on my radar. And I would always draw, like, I was drawing comics like in school, like from when I was a kid and stuff like that. And initially, even like going into uni, it was always very much like, I want to be an animator. I want to be a 2D animator. And I can animate, but I liked animating my own things, hand-drawn, just as a hobby. And I think it's really easy, especially when you're young, to instantly think, yeah, I want to be an animator, when actually it might be more of the storytelling side of animation that you actually like, or, another part of it. It's not actually the technical animation. I think it's because that's what you see on screen. You immediately think, that's what I want to do, like that one skill. And throughout uni and then my early career, I was dipping in and out of, I'm going to be animator, I'm going to be a concept artist, and then and storyboarding. So it was like a dipping my toe in different areas of animation. And I got my first job out of uni was at an advertising agency kind of studio. They worked on a lot of advertising, and also a lot of like what's the word? Like big pharma, that was it. Like, so they worked on a lot of big pharma advertising, so really dry stuff, but it helped me learn Storyboard Pro. I would storyboard for the adverts. I would do all the concept art. It was they needed a generalist, and that was my first dip into like trying to learn the software. And then after that, when I tried getting into like kids TV, because that's what I always wanted to go into, I started applying for animation roles. And I got a test on like a Netflix show, and it was so exciting and so cool. And then they sent the rig. It was the most complicated thing I'd ever looked at in my life. And I'm very fortunate that my partner is she's an animator, but 3D CGI. And I showed her the shot that I was animating, and she had notes. And she was like, oh, you should, this isn't working, this is a bit broken, that's feeling a bit weird. And I just started crying. I just started to cry because, and this was kind of the thing where I think storyboarding clicked for me, because with animation and the technical side behind it, and I couldn't, in my head, when I was given notes, I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to fix it. I can only just do what I can, and why can't I? It wasn't clicking. And then when I started getting more storyboard gigs, I started leaning more towards storyboarding. I was taking more like classes and like online. This was kind of like during lockdown at this point, and got my first storyboard roles. And then I would get notes while on the job. And it was like, oh, this is making sense. I know what to do. I know, like, I would get notes being like, this isn't working, try this. And it'd be like, yep, I know how to do. It was like something clicked, you know, and it was like, this is what I understand. I understand cinematography and storytelling and composing shots and camera work and stuff like that. It's not necessarily the animation side, it's the storytelling side. That was really long-winded, but like
really interesting, because I think it sounds like you're the same, you know. I kind of grew up more on like frame by frame, hand-drawn animation, and when you're given a rig, sometimes it's like, I don't know, you don't mentally prepare for all the technical stuff which goes into it. You think that it's served for 3D, and I guess storyboarding kind of allows you to be more free, maybe more, you know, focus on the drawing.
Yeah, like it allows you, more freedom and rough. I think that is the thing. Like, you just want to be rough and get the idea down. It's more idea based, whereas animation is actually very, you're given the storyboards. Do you know what I mean? To that's your framework. Whereas storyboards is coming up with the visuals and it just worked out better for me in that direction.
Okay, I guess that kind of actually very nicely leads into my next question, is why is storyboarding important? You know, why do we need storyboarding?
Yes. So storyboarding is basically the first visual representation of the script of whatever you're working on, whether it's episodes or a film. You're the first person that is taking, you know, this piece of literature and making it into something visual for someone, you know, to watch. And it is, you know, it's the foundation of the rest of the production. You know, and sometimes, yes, I think people will argue that sometimes design can come first and stuff like that, but it's everything that's going to get poured, you know, into the board. You know, we need designs for backgrounds and props, all that will come together into the board. You know what I mean? And same with like character designs. You're going to see that in the board at some point. You know what I mean? And yeah, without storyboarding, it's difficult to consistently, you know, put together, like you're stitching together shots to make scenes and to create, you know, a connection with the audience. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people can look at storyboarding and think, oh well, it's only drawing. I can just, for example, the film Flow that came out, apparently that wasn't made with any storyboards. It just went straight into went straight into 3D layout, and I would argue that they did storyboard it, but they just did it the way that they wanted to do it. I think they often, and I think people can sometimes pin like storyboarding is just the drawing, and like it's almost like 2D hand-drawn animation, where it's like it's not really that. It whatever works for you, you know. There are directors out there in live action that only like to storyboard using photography, and that's, you know, all what you're doing is you're setting up your shots, you're figuring out the cameras that you want to use, you're figuring out the cinematography, and that's what storyboarding is. It's not just about pretty pictures. It's not about like a comic version of your animation. It's composing and stitching together shots and to tell your story and to tell your narrative clearly to the audience.
really, really insightful. I think for the Norman show, when I started storyboarding it, it was very interesting to see kind of what worked and what didn't work visually. You know, it's so you get so used to just reading the words on the scripts and like listening to the voices, but then you think, how is this character actually going to move from point A to point B? How can we actually maximize a joke to make it as funny as we can? And there were so many extra bits I added in, just visual cues, which I would have never put in the script. So that's interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, next question. You kind of touched on it before, but what tools and softwares do you recommend for storyboarding?
Oh yes. I mean, the biggest one I would recommend to anyone, especially if you're learning or wanting to dip into the industry, is Toon Boom Storyboard Pro. It is, especially for television, it's the industry standard, and it is so useful. Like, it's like, that's the other thing. Like, don't be, just because it's a new software, don't be scared to use it, because once you get like your head around it, it is so much more useful than, you know, doing your boards just in any art program. Because you're able, I love being able to just flick through the boards and you kind of get a feeling for like what's happening in the scene, rather than having to turn layers on and off and, you know, stuff like that. As far as I'm aware, I haven't worked in feature. I would love to one day, but as far as I'm aware, Photoshop is quite industry standard for feature films. I know a lot of people in TV are a bit like, I hope they start to accept Storyboard Pro soon. Just because it feels, at least from my experience, it just feels a lot nicer and more streamlined. But yeah, there are other tools though. What we use at Blue Zoo for 3D productions is, and this is a software that I believe was developed at Blue Zoo, but then it kind of branched out into its own thing. I might be misquoting, but is Panel Forge, and that is very 3D heavy, where and I learned it on the job at Blue Zoo when I was working on a kids show called Pip and Posy, and essentially what you do is every scene you bring in the 3D assets, so like your scenes, your characters, and then before you get into storyboarding, like drawing the acting, you'll set up, you know, it's basically like doing your own rough layout. You know, before you even get to layout, you set up all the characters and where they want to be, where you want them to move, and best way I can describe it for anyone who doesn't really understand CGI and 3D is it's like playing The Sims. You're setting up your scenes playing The Sims, and then you'll pull out and draw over the top of those scenes, and that you're creating this 3D storyboard. And my god, like I have hated using anything 3D, like any CGI stuff. When I was going through uni, I was like, I am never going to touch this, I am never going to need this, I'm never going to need to know how to use it, I don't want to know how to use it. Very foolish, don't be like me. But it like going into learning this software and learning 3D on that show was so useful. Like I was like, oh my god, like I can just, what do you mean I can just place the characters and then they're there and I don't have to, obviously you still have to think about composition, but it's I could concentrate more on the acting because I'd already set up the scene. And I think yeah, if I would recommend anything to any artist who, even if they're not into storyboarding, even if you just kind of want to get into even just any kind of art or something that's to do with cinema or setting up scenes, is learning really basic 3D stuff. Like a lot of people I know use Blender now as well for like storyboarding, like grease pencil. I haven't used it. I really want to. It's another thing in the back of my mind where I'm like, I need to learn how to use grease pencil. And that's a similar setup where you set up your scene in 3D and then draw over the top of it. And yeah, it's just so useful because it's a tool that allows you to branch out and you know, you might, especially if you're kind of not comfortable with perspective or you want to get a bit stronger at that, like yeah, using 3D software I think is just a really good tool belt to have in your back pocket. It's one of them, it's not essential but very useful, I would say. Yeah. Insightful.
I feel like I'm definitely learning.
Oh, good.
I can kind of relate it to my project, but you know, it's cool. Okay, Lauren, I want to ask you, what are your free storyboard do's? What would you recommend for anyone starting out doing? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I had notes. Okay. The biggest thing for do's is like it's kind of all thumbnailing. Oh, like I think the biggest the biggest weakness a lot of, I think, artists starting out in storyboarding is they'll go into their they're starting a project, right, and they go straight in, guns blazing, into like finite detail storyboards. And this is something I did as well. Like, this is, I feel like every single artist goes through this, where they start out completely gorgeous drawings, and like really they're married to the first storyboard they ever make, and it just ends in disaster, because you're gonna get notes. You are always gonna get notes, and you are always gonna, your first idea is not always gonna be the best. And if it is, you won't know it's the best unless you've done 5 other versions. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't just go with your first idea. And rather than wasting all your time doing these gorgeous, perfect boards the first time round, thumbnail it. Get them on, like, get a crappy sketch. Can I swear? Yeah. Get a crappy sketchbook, and like and just thumbnail. Get, like, you know, just little squares. Like, print out your script, thumbnail on the, like, read as you're reading the script. If you have got scenes popping up in your head, get your pen and scribble on the script. Get it down. Like, get the idea down. That's what you need to concentrate on. Stop thinking about, like, well, they've got to be beautiful boards, and they have to be, you know, they have to look like they were drawn by Disney, and you know what I mean? Like, they have to look like I think a lot of people in the industry will post storyboards that are basically keyed animation, and I think that has warped, like, how we see storyboards, on how they should be presented. And that as a final, fantastic, like, especially for really important scenes, do you know what I mean, in the show or the film, like, go for it. But 90% of the boards that actually are made in production, they look awful. Like, they're rough, do you know what I mean? They're not meant to be beautiful. They're meant to convey the idea that, you know, and that's, yeah, thumbnailing. Just get your idea down, you know, do it bad first, and then you can go back and improve it, you know. And a finished board is better than a perfect unfinished board, you know what I mean? Like, this is something I always try to push with, like, my team, where it's like, stop trying to add detail first, and let's get the foundation of it down, you know. Oh yes, that was it. So second do, I think it's really tempting, especially when you're starting out, to make a board that, like, is really cool, has really cool cameras, you know what I mean? The camera's flying all over the place. You want to go straight in with an action sequence, and, you know, you've got characters doing all sorts of acrobatics and stuff like that, which is very complex, very difficult. But also, if you're using, like, a script, do storyboard and create your shots, and do what's best for the story, not what's best for you, and not what you think is gonna look cool. Like, telling a story and having something look cool is kind of two different things. Like, they don't always like marry up together. And having something that is interesting to watch and, you know, has clarity is so much better. And they could have really simple shots, but if it tells the story and you're conveying the acting, and, you know, you're showing where the characters are, that can be so much more interesting and strong portfolio piece than something where, you know, you've got 360 cameras and you're like cut. Like, it's really obvious when someone who's quite early on in their career isn't cutting or, like, storyboarding or composing shots with intention. You know, that they're just kind of cutting for the sake of, well, I think we should cut at this point. Well, we should have a new camera at this point. Like, just because. And don't do it just because. Do it because, you know, you have a reason to. If you don't have a reason to cut to the next shot or move a character, or, you know, then don't do it. Because it will feel natural. That is what will feel better to the audience than just going willy-nilly with changing the scene or moving the camera or moving characters. I think I've had notes before where or I've given notes where you'll see we'll ask like a character, hey, let's place them over here please in this side of the shot, and instead of trying to naturally find a way for the character to move, we'll literally have the artist have them just step to the left, and it's like they're not moving with intention. And that's a really good example where it's like, no, how would you naturally get the character to move? Don't just have them take a step back, because that's like ordering. It's like you can hear the director ordering an actor to move, but yeah, so do things with intention. Don't just do things in your storyboard because you have to, or because you want it to look cool. Like, it has to serve the purpose of the story and telling the audience the story. That is your goal as a storyboard artist. And then I guess my final do is and this marries up with like my comments on 3D, is learn to draw in perspective and drawing backgrounds, because I think a lot of people think even animation in general is just about the characters, but it's about your scene, like, and it's so easy, I think, for a lot of artists to kind of just submit storyboards that is just two characters on a white sheet, and it's like it's so much of a scene composition is about the perspective and creating the world around them, and use the foreground, use the background, like use it to your advantage, like help the audience see what you want them to look at, rather than just having plonking two people onto the screen. So yeah, learning to draw backgrounds and always get better at like even life drawing, stuff like that, like characters in perspective, and learning to draw scenes in perspective and using grids, and just all really important stuff that I think can get overlooked because it's not as cool. Do you know what I mean? It's cooler drawing characters. Everybody loves drawing characters and faces, and but that's a skill that is really important in storyboarding. So yeah.
Wow, amazing. Honestly, amazing. I feel like I've answered some of this, actually quite a lot of this, but unless you've got any three separate don'ts, what wouldn't you do? What
I
would
do.
you do?
Listen, I made notes. I was
Beautiful. Perfect. Amazing. Well, what are your three storyboard do nots?
My three storyboard do nots. Hang on, I'll look at the camera. My three storyboard do nots would be don't constantly I'm kind of using this as well as like things I've noticed in more people starting out in the industry in their boards, and that can be really easy to avoid. Constantly hugging the frame way too tight around any character, whether you've got a shot, setting up the shot, just always remember to give your shot a bit of breathing room. We don't always have to have a mid shot that's like top of the camera's here, and or like if you've got a close up and you got the bottom of the chin and the top of the head here, like it's something I always notice in early boards with people early in their career, is like the camera is just constantly way too tight. Give them breathing room, give them a chance to breathe, like open up the shot, don't try to avoid having the horizon constantly in the middle, slicing your frame in half. This is a bit more cinematic, but it's always, I think that's always a clear sign of like not really thinking about your camera placement. So having a horizon that's equilateral middle of the shot, like it just kind of, unless you're trying to go for some kind of style, like it's intentional, do things with intention. Unless it's intentional, it would be, it looks so, it looks boring, like it looks weird, it looks strange, you know what I mean? Like either a really cinematic, just like let's get the horizon really low on the ground, like or like have the camera looking down to the floor, up to the sky, move the camera around. If you have the horizon straight line slicing through your shot, I think it's just showing that you're not really thinking about where your camera is, and you're going for the most super simple, super basic, camera shot. And and that can look a bit odd in people's work. Don't ignore hookups. And a hookup is when you have, think of the timeline of an episode or a film and all of the different shots. Think of it as a train, and every single shot is the carriage of a train, and you want all of your shots to hook up with each other like a train would, every train carriage. And hookups is when you have two shots adjacent to each other, and let's say in one shot you have a character sat down. Maybe it's like me in a close-up right now, sat down in my chair, and then we cut to the next shot and we pull to the wide, but all of a sudden the character is now stood up. When did he stand up? Why did he stand up? So all of a sudden the audience is like, whoa, like confusion, like what's happening? And that's a really simple way of describing hookups, and that can make or break your storyboard. That can, I think, elevate it from being like, I'm trying out storyboarding, to I know what I'm doing. I'm looking out for details. It's keeping up with all the details in your boards, and it shows that you are, you're thinking about the audience. You're keeping, what is top thing you should always be thinking about is what is clear to the audience, and keeping an eye on hookups and not just ignoring them and just drawing whatever you want willy-nilly. I think really shows that that's what you're thinking about. You're thinking about keeping the board and keeping either the episode or the film clear to the audience. And yeah, that's it.
Oh, honestly, Lauren, really, really, really useful. I guess I don't know if you got any last minute tips or motivation. I don't know, I'm sorry to throw this on you, but just as a wrap up.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Sorry, I'll put you.
I guess I know, like the proper throwing me into it. I guess motivation is it's so cliche, but just to keep going. I think especially, I don't think it's unbeknownst to anyone that the animation industry is a little bit rocky right now. And I think for a lot of people starting out, it's quite scary. And, always have a plan A, B, and C. Like, I am totally for that. But I think if you want to work in the animation industry and you stop, like if you that's when it's not going to happen. And keep trying, keep practicing, and keep absorbing what's out there. Like, try to keep growing, because that is what art is all about. Like, you're growing as a person, your art is growing, your work is growing, and even if you're just doing it for yourself, like, keep going. That's I think that's the only thing I can really say is just keep going, keep moving forward, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That is an absolutely beautiful note to end on.
Oh,
well,
thank you. That was really last minute. Like,
honestly,
I didn't know what else.
Really inspiring, and I think, especially us entry level up, we need to hear that. It's so easy to kind of throw in the towel and be like, it's never going to happen. But
yeah,
as long as you keep going, I think you'll always get to where you want to be.
Yeah, there's so many. No, because I'll keep talking. Because I was going to be like, there's so many students that I've met, and then they've stuck in my mind, and then I have recommended them for jobs because they've remembered them and that kind of thing. I guess keep going and keep talking to people. Like keep out there. Don't just hide away from it all. Like, you know, because that's how we remember each other in the animation industry. It's a very team-based industry. You know, we want to work together. We all want to work with our friends, and you know, I've remembered so many students that have come up to me at festivals, and then I've put their name forward for like junior roles because it's like you've got to give these guys a chance, you know. So, but if you don't go to these festivals, if you don't talk to these people, that chance isn't going to happen. Um, I got my first job at Blue Zoo because my friend recommended me. So it's all about helping each other, knowing each other. Yeah. Sorry, I added more onto the end there.
Okay, no, honestly cannot thank you enough, Lauren.
Thank you.
Gonna wrap this up. Yeah,
Yeah.
stay tuned. Stay tuned for next time. Thanks,
Yeah.
Lauren. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
Thank you.